The opening sequence of a movie will set the tone and mood of the film. The concept and nature of Batman Returns is revealed in the first 3 minutes of the movie. People running away in fear from the innocent cry of a newborn child. A baby locked inside a steel cage, his deformed hand reaching out and violently grabbing a pussycat. A most respectable family doing the most unrespectable thing imaginable. The concept and nature of Batman Returns is contradiction, a combination of statements, ideas, or features that are opposed to one another. This concept is present throughout the entire film, starting with the title, Batman Returns. But how can someone return if they never left?
Biggest news in America this week, and possibly this year, is the record-shattering success of the Caped Crusader in the new film, Batman Returns.
And the Batman Returns, which is rated PG-13, is actually being marketed for younger children, and the movie is just too violent.
The reaction to this movie was polarizing, with some people saying it was brighter than the original Batman movie from 1989, while others said it was darker. A valid contradiction, because Batman Returns is different and at the same time similar to the original. This movie is an opera. The visual moment, the music, the story, the characters, everything belongs in the stage of a grand opera. That's the main difference with the original. However, the similarity is that both are presented as superhero movies, and that, combined with operatic elements, makes of Batman Returns an expressive contradiction. The elements that return to this movie are mostly related to Batman. Familiar faces like Michael Keaton and Michael Gove, Wayne Manor, the Batcave, the Batmobile, and the slightly redesigned Batsuit. All of them make a comeback, along with Danny Elfman's Batman theme. Their presence, however, is minimal compared to the new elements. The attention moves away from Batman and focuses on the new and more fascinating characters. The Penguin and Catwoman acting as the main villains, with Max Schreck working as a rogue agent. This is a Batman movie that is not really about Batman. This is a contradiction. Batman Returns is a movie about the villains, with the Penguin acting almost as the protagonist. There is a great amount of attention to the details about the Penguin, from his origin story in the opening sequence to his journey as a baby across the sewers of Gotham, where he is baptized into his new life and adopted by his new family. The attention to details in this movie is no exaggeration. Small things like the shadow of a penguin cast by the floating crib in the sewers during the opening credits. Just one example of what makes this movie fascinating. The character design of the Penguin seems to have been inspired by the 1920s silent film The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, one of the most important films of German Expressionism. The main character of that movie bears a striking resemblance to the Penguin. The Penguin design was drastically different from the comic book character, who was just a short, fat man with a top hat and a cigar. This Penguin refuses to get a cigar in his mouth, in a symbolic rejection of the traditional concept. But despite his design, everything about the Penguin is a reference to the classic versions of the character. His flying umbrella, as well as the army of penguins carrying explosives, are taken from the classic Golden Age comics. The Penguin running for mayor of Gotham is a recycled idea from the 1960s Batman TV show, as well as the Penguin stealing the Batmobile and then losing control of the car. The Penguin in Batman Returns is both a homage and a rejection of the classic Penguin. He is a contradiction, a complex character with conflicting emotions. On the outside, he is a freak who wants revenge on the society that turned against him. But on the inside, he wants to find his origin and be accepted for what he is. When he finds a place among society, he finally embraces his humanity.
My name's not Penguin, it's Oswald Cobblepot.
The same humanity that he rejects when he is no longer accepted.
My name is not Oswald! It's Penguin!
This contradiction is also translated into the Penguin's main theme. Danny Elfman's music highlights the character's inner conflict. The music conveys both menace and tragedy, two drastically different concepts at the same time. The performance of Danny DeVito as the Penguin is impeccable. He understands the character and works with the absurd amount of makeup he had to wear. Danny was committed to the role, and it shows. His outstanding execution of the Penguin is only matched by Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman. Selina is the character that goes through the greatest transformation. She is introduced in a scene where most of the time she is in the background, blocked by men who are bigger than her on the screen. She is a small figure who doesn't really fit in that place, and when she is in a frame alone, she is surrounded by empty space. A mousy girl, living under the shadow of the men controlling her life, until she becomes Catwoman. The dominated girl becomes the dominant woman. The mousy person becomes a fierce feline. Catwoman takes control of the screen, occupying all the space in the shot, a visual representation of her taking control of her life. But despite all that, she is still a fragmented person. Her life as Selina Kyle ended when Max pushed her through the window. Then she adopted the identity of Catwoman.
I am Catwoman. Hear me roar.
But later on, she is still unsure of her identity.
Who the hell do you think you are?
I don't know anymore, Bruce.
Selina's identity crisis is a contradiction that was reflected in the Catwoman character design. The leather catsuit speaks of a person who tried to stitch her broken pieces into a new identity, a confident, sexy new personality. This Catwoman is different from the classic character. She is not a thief. She doesn't care about stealing. All she wants is to prove herself superior to all the men around her.
Selina.
That's my name, Maximilians. Don't wear it out or I'll make you buy me a new one.
The brilliant moments of the movie are always present in the small details, like finding the right glasses for an actor, placing the light source in the right position, and putting the camera in the right angle to get shots like this one, where the shadow of a cat mask is projected in Selina's face. A subtle hint of the supernatural element involving this Catwoman. The music for Catwoman also highlights her conflict. This music conveys completely different concepts like sorrow and seduction, and yet they are perfectly combined. Selina's transformation into Catwoman is one of the most intense moments. The music and the visuals complement this idea of an operatic movie. The combination of contradictive concepts is essential to achieve an expressive photography. The best example of this is the Penguin's visit to the cemetery. A disgusting and hideous creature like the Penguin, presented in the most sublime and beautiful moment. This is why the villains of this movie are just as important as Batman. The Penguin and Batman are both tragic characters. They were born in rich families, and their lives were determined by their parents.
You're just jealous because I'm a genuine freak and you have to wear a mask!
Both Catwoman and Batman have an identity crisis. Their relationship with and without the masks is a perfect duality.
You got kind of a dark side, don't you?
No darker than yours, Bruce.
There is fire between them. Literally. In this scene, they almost discover their true identities by getting too close to the scars that they gave each other. However, it isn't until the costume party that things become clear between them. They are the only two people there who are not wearing masks. The poetic irony here is that they learn the truth while wearing their true masks. Bruce and Selina are fascinating together, and their dynamics as Batman and Catwoman are the highlight of the movie. The movie has been called both brighter and darker than the first one. Yet another contradiction, but it has a valid reason. The movie is brighter than the original because it fully embraces the grandiose absurdity of the comics. Things like an arsenal of trick umbrellas, an army of penguins, a circus of criminals, a toy Batmobile, and giant rubber duckies are all ridiculous and fun concepts that seems to be taken from the funny pages. However, the movie is darker because the themes of the story are nothing to laugh about. Things like child endangerment, domestic terrorism, destruction of the private property, political and corporate corruption, depravity and sexism. The fact that such dark themes can effectively coexist with the brighter ones makes of Batman Returns a most fascinating movie. Of course, they take some liberties with Batman's no-killing rule, but that's the nature of screen adaptations. They can never be truly faithful to the comics. As with the first movie, DC Comics released a comic book adaptation of Batman Returns, also written by the legendary Dennis O'Neil. In this comic, they tried to fix some of the issues by removing all the dark and controversial themes from the story. But in doing so, the comic lost all the elements and dichotomies that make Batman Returns such an iconic piece of cinema. These contradictions are the reason why the movie works from the very start to the final battle. In any other superhero movie, this is the moment when good triumphs over evil, the time when the hero overcomes his enemies and saves the day. The symbolic victory that everyone expects from these films. This is when the audience feels happy and accomplished because the promise of victory has been delivered and the quest for a better future begins. That is not the case in Batman Returns. In this final battle, the hero exposes himself to the woman he loves, only to lose her without a trace. The evil is defeated, but if this is how good conquers evil, if this is the promised victory, then how come it feels so tragically sad? Hey guys, making this video was a real challenge, because you have no idea how much I love this movie. It's probably my favorite Batman movie along with The Dark Knight. If you like this video, then consider sharing it around, and also subscribe and follow me on Twitter, where I usually post about the upcoming videos. Thank you so much for watching, and stay safe.